Yes, what's going on, people? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another live stream. Yeah, not really sure where to begin with this one. A complete and utter annihilation at the Emirates last night. A new low for Chelsea in what's been a season of low and what's been 2 years of lows. But last night, I think, really topped it off and summed up exactly where we are as a football club, exactly where we deserve to be, given the route that we've decided to go down. Everyone from top to bottom, not good enough in every single department. Unacceptable levels of performance all over the club. And yeah, it leaves us in a place where we are most likely to miss out on Europe for a second consecutive season. Last night was probably the worst experience I think I've ever witnessed in a football stadium. From minute one, we just were not at the races. There's a lack of application, a lack of desire. Pochettino even saying that after 3-0 down, the team just gave up. I mean, what does that say about this team? What does that say about this management? What does that say about the squad? What does that say about the directors? What does that say about the culture being created at this club, that we've gutted out the squad, got rid of loads of players that we wanted to get rid of that didn't want to be here, and yet we seemingly replace them with young, which should be young, hungry players that just give up when the going gets tough. What is that about? What is that about? We've got briefings coming out today about, Pochettino has still got backing within the board. He's not officially safe beyond the summer. Nothing, a full decision's not been taken yet. There's recognition of the circumstances and all that stuff. One thing I would say is that at least now he's starting to call out the club and the ownership for the mess that we're in terms of the squad, in terms of we need to have a different plan if we're to progress forward. We absolutely do. What we are doing now is categorically not working. It is categorically not working. And ultimately, for me, this has been a mess. This has been a mess waiting to happen right now. It's been a mess waiting to happen. The project hasn't got off the ground yet. We're still on the runway. And the most worrying thing for me is that, people talk about, we'll be better next season. Pochettino goes on about we'll be better next season. And you'd like to think we might be better next season, but ultimately, are we really going to be any better next season? Because all we're going to do in the transfer market is repeat all the mistakes that we've made to get to this point in the first place. We've already started it by scheduling a massive US summer tour, which once again, guys, is going to disrupt the preparation and the fitness for the season ahead. They've made so many poor decision after poor decision after poor decision. And once again, we are setting ourselves up to fail. There's no accountability at the club. There's no responsibility. There's no leadership. There's no culture. And that culture comes from the top. The tone is set from the top and it trickles down. And right now, Chelsea is not a winning environment. It is not set up to win and be successful. And that's where we are right now. And there's seemingly been a culture created that kind of makes it okay, it makes it acceptable to not deliver good results because they just think everything will be all right in the end. There's no, there's no, do you know what I mean? There's no accountability. There's no willingness to think, shit, we're in trouble here. They just think everything's going to be all right. There's no willingness to understand what's going on here. But look, everyone is responsible for what's going on right now. And look, the manager has done nowhere near. Look, you can talk about different managers. Yeah, a different manager might get us better structure, might sort us out defensively, might get more out of these players. But ultimately, working under Chelsea as it is now, there is a certain ceiling as to how far you can, as to how much success you can actually have as a manager. And until the outlook changes, at the club and the strategy shifts focus, or there's a willingness to adapt the strategy, then there is a ceiling as to how well you can do as a manager at Chelsea. And ultimately, right now the ceiling is probably top 6, but anyone thinking that under the same circumstances a different manager comes in and we're suddenly a top 4 team is chronically deluded. In my opinion. I mean, look, if we look into it, let's be honest, let's be realistic. Are the directors to blame? 100%. The fact that Lawrence Stewart and Paul Winstanley were employed as football experts, right, to put this squad together, to build a squad that's capable of competing, at the top level of English football, get us back into the Champions League. Yet they thought they could do that by putting together a squad of under 25s, inexperienced players with potential which might not be reached, and think that would be good enough to compete in the Premier League. What's more worrying is the fact that, the ownership at the start of the season thought this would be enough for us to get in the top 4. That is really, really concerning. There's been a massive misreading of the room, a massive misunderstanding of what it takes to build a squad to compete in the Premier League. And you wonder how the likes of Winstanley and the likes of Stewart actually got past the interview process. They were doing interviews in the summer, patting themselves on the back for the recruitment that they've done. Ultimately, we are in this mess, yes, because A, the manager's not done well enough and the players haven't done well enough, but ultimately we're in this mess because of the direction the club have chosen to go in, and because of the recruitment that has been done by these directors. That is the reality of the situation. So yes, the directors are 100% to blame for the situation that we find ourselves in now. However, the manager has to take a lot of responsibility here, and he needs to take a huge part of the blame. There is zero shape defensively in possession. There's no defensive structure whatsoever. We're leaking goals for fun. The attack have got no idea how to transition the ball through the final thirds. We're shit at set pieces at both ends of the pitch. That's got nothing to do with the recruitment. That's got nothing to do with the directors. That has got to do with coaching. All those there are fundamental coaching points, and Pochettino simply has not hit those fundamental coaching points. In terms of those basics. In terms of those basics, we simply have not achieved the basics. We're still talking about, players not knowing what to do. We're still talking about a shocking defensive unit. We're still talking about being reliant on one player. We're still talking about huge gaps between midfield and the back line. We're talking about players that can't even string a 5-yard pass together. The manager takes a lot of responsibility and will probably pay the ultimate price. But let's make no mistake about it. If he does get replaced at the end of the season, then how can we trust these directors to appoint the next person? And how can we trust that anything's going to be any different under anyone else? Because the plan is going to stay the same. We're going to make the same mistakes. We're going to go down the same line of recruitment. So why should we expect anything to be different? And that's why, yeah, of course, the manager probably does need to go. There's no denying that. The manager probably does need to go. But ultimately, more than the manager needs to go. Just changing the manager is changing one piece in the puzzle when pretty much the whole puzzle needs to be changed. It really is as simple as that. But the naivety from this ownership and these directors thinking that what they were doing would work and it would be all right. We're in a state right now. We've shelled out hundreds of millions of pounds on raw, inexperienced, unproven players. We didn't replace any of the senior heads, and that's why we're getting unpredictable and varying results. And then you add a manager in who's doing a subpar job, to put it politely, and it is complete and utter carnage. Ultimately, though, the reality is, guys, that most of this is a result of the environment that these players and the manager was brought into, that the players were brought into. And the environment being created at the club goes above any manager and it goes above any player. Simple as that. Simple as that. The environment at the club goes that's above players and that's above managers. The ownership have made a complete and utter mess of this. I think they've completely underestimated, the task at hand. They don't understand what it takes to compete in the Premier League. The so-called footballing experts that were brought in haven't got a clue of how to put a squad together to win, and there's no willingness to accept that they've done wrong. There's no willingness to accept they've done wrong. They just sort of, it's a very much a bury your heads in the sand attitude. And do you know what? Yeah, we're just going to carry on what we're doing because at some point this will eventually work out. And the more money we throw at it and the more money we spend, eventually some signings will hit. There'll be more hits than misses. It was just unacceptable capitulation yesterday. I don't think anyone expected us to go to the Emirates and win. I don't think anyone expected that. But I think the least you can expect is to turn up, put in a shift, compete, and give it your best. We didn't do any of those things. We were there in body, but we weren't there in mind or spirit. Simple as that. We were absolutely pathetic yesterday. Absolutely pathetic. And I do have a bit of sympathy for the manager being handed what can only be described as a complete mess of a squad. But there is no way that as a Chelsea manager, you can lose in the manner we did and to the scoreline to Arsenal and there not be any consequences. And unfortunately, they won't and they can't get rid of the players, or they can't get rid of all of the players, or ones that aren't good enough because of the long contracts that they've been tied down to. So ultimately, there's going to be one person that carries the can for this. There was no fight. There was no nothing, and that is a huge problem. And look, fundamentally, I actually don't think Mauricio Pochettino is a bad manager, but I think what is clear as day now is that what his skill set and what he brings as a manager is not suited to Chelsea at all. I think it's very much a case of, is Pochettino a bad manager? No, he's not a bad manager. Is he right for what Chelsea are looking to do in a direction the club are looking to go in? You'd have to say no, he's not. Based on the evidence that we've got in front of us, it's been a shambles from day one. I'm talking about absolute basics last night. Basics, giving the ball away. Do you know what the biggest thing for me was? Right, was the short corners. Mudryk was the guy tasked with the short corners, right? As in like going to stop the short corner. Every single time Arsenal had a corner, they went short, and that was the setup. The short corner was on every single time, and only when the short corner was played would the player, in this case Mudryk, run out and try and stop the cross. One short corner ultimately led to a goal. That is basic coaching. You cannot tell me, right, that that Mudryk or whoever the player is told to mark short corners like that. You cannot tell me that Pochettino is an experienced manager and with experienced coaching staff are telling Chelsea players to set up in this way and defend short corners like that. Surely that isn't the case. And if that is the case, why is no one taking responsibility on the pitch and screaming at Mudryk, telling him to get out there and close down the short corner? Why is that not happening? Why is that being allowed to happen? It wasn't allowed to happen just once. It was allowed to happen at every single corner that Arsenal got. It's staggering. It's absolutely staggering that basic level and lack of coaching, that is complete lack of coaching, complete lack of understanding. This can't happen. If you send a player for a short option, you've got to go. Someone's got to go with them. It's basic stuff. It is basic stuff. And two things are, look, either way, it's two very, very bad things, because either the player has ignored the fact the short corners are and can't be bothered to go and track it, which is damning, or the team have been coached to defend set pieces that way, which is equally as damning as well. So when you've got, I cannot believe how we were setting up last night from those defensive set plays. The playing out from the back was shocking. The passing was awful. We gave up non-existent front line. I felt a bit sorry for Nicholas Jackson last night. He was so isolated up there. He tried. He stretched the game. He stretched the game. He tried his best. He was so isolated up there. Had a couple of opportunities which he absolutely should have done better with. And clearly, after the criticism he received at the weekend, he's obviously very low on confidence. But when we get the ball, there's no movement. Everyone was just walking last night. There's no options in the final third. There's no options in the final third. It's mannequin football. Everyone's just standing there, walking around. Like, where's the desire to want to get into the box? And Madueke's guilty of this. Mudrik's guilty of this. A lot of these attackers are guilty of this, of not breaking a neck to get into the box. The wide players yesterday, it was a big opportunity in the absence of Cole Palmer to step up and try and prove your worth. Madueke and Mudrik were both awful yesterday. Absolutely awful. Didn't step up, didn't take their opportunities. And it's deeply, deeply concerning. A lot of these players look like that we spent big money on, look like they're nowhere near good enough to play for this football club, or certainly aren't going to be anywhere near good enough for a number of years. I think fundamentally we have signed some very good footballers, but ultimately, some of them will make it here, but there's a large percentage of them that simply are not good enough to play here. And people that think Jackson is not a good footballer, it does my head in. It really does, because this guy was bought in £30 million, and he's had a good season. 13 goals in all competitions, 10 in the Premier League. What he offers the team has been good. I don't have the clip. He's come in, 13 goals in all competitions, 10 in the league. He's played way more football than he should have done in terms of being integrated into the team. The pressure that's been put on his shoulders to basically lead the line for Chelsea in what is his third season as a senior footballer, his first as a striker. He's got very good all-round attributes. His play outside of the box is very, very good. Problem is, when he gets into the box, his play is nowhere near good enough. And, yes, you can get better at finishing, but that natural instinct to put the ball in the back of the net, you can't coach that. Yes, you can, coach situations and get better for sure. But for people to suggest that Jackson is crap is honestly nonsense. Honestly nonsense. The Enzo Fernandez thing, I honestly do not understand it whatsoever. I cannot get my head round why he keeps being played. What is the point of playing this guy? Because he clearly isn't fit. He's been playing for a hernia issue for a number of games this season. He's having injections. It's going to do him more. It's going to do him more harm in the long run. It's not like we're playing for anything serious. Yes, somehow we can still, somehow we can still qualify for Europe. I think that's very, very unlikely, and won't happen. Enzo's not fit. Stop playing him. Send him away from the surgery. Allow him to regroup, and then go from there. Because right now, what we're doing is doing him a disservice. It's making people think that he's not a good footballer. Enzo Fernandez is a very good footballer. He's a World Cup winner, for fuck's sake. Like, he's not a bad footballer. But right now, playing in Chelsea, playing in the system, the way the team's set up, is and playing through the pain barrier, and he fundamentally isn't fit. This is proving to be a massive problem. Stop playing him. Simple as that. Every player is going to want to play, but let's take an adult decision here. Let's take adult decisions and decide that, you know what, the season's basically done. Send Enzo away, because he's got Copa America in the summer, which he's going to want to play in, which will be a key part of the Argentinian side. Send him away, get the surgery done, and play someone else. At this point, play Chukwuemeka, play Casadei, play Gallagher and Caicedo in the pivot. Whatever you want to do, just go and do it. Because right now, Enzo Fernandez is done. He's not fit. Finish his season. Send him away from the surgery, and get this dealt with once and for all, because it is clearly affecting his ability on the football pitch, and he just looks miles off it, which is to be expected. Of course, it's to be expected. The guy's not fit. How can you expect someone to perform at the level required when they aren't fit? It's beyond me. It's absolutely beyond me right now. It really is, and it just highlights more dreadful decision making. Mudryk always looks like he plays in centre mid, because for some reason, like when we're on the attack, he doesn't seem to start moving until until the ball's basically in the box, which I don't understand. Mudryk, do you know what the problem with Mudryk is? Right, he's got a lot of he's got a lot of very good attributes, but and at times he does really impress. The problem is that he disappears in games far too often. And he's not the only one guilty of it. There's a lot of them that just disappear and don't turn up in matches. And that's something that has to be addressed. That's something, that needs to be sorted out. Too many of these players do not turn up, or are not there to be counted for. Look, Mudryk has shown moments, and look, I believe in the player. I really do. I think there's something there, but the more performances that go by, that like that one at the Emirates, you have to look at it and you have to say, look, this guy has got ability, but he's not realizing it. He's not unlocking it. Something's missing. Something is massively missing, just to let games drift you by. It was a huge opportunity for him yesterday to try and make an impression, and he didn't take it, and he simply didn't take it. So yeah, there's a lot of issues at the club right now, a massive amount of issues, and the manager's taking a lot of the blame, but ultimately the players have got to take some of the blame as well. They have to. They're the ones out there performing on the pitch. It's as simple as that. Yes, everyone else is equally responsible as well within the club. There's a shared responsibility for why we're in such a mess. But I've seen a lot of players absolving the players. A lot of people, absolving the players of any blame. Which for me is a nonsense. They should be taking a lot of the heat as well. The manager should be taking heat. The players should be. The directors should be, and the ownership should be as well. The problem we've got is that we're not in a situation as a team to be carrying all these young players. We're not in a position to be having the whole team at learning on the job, basically. It's like having a load of work experience kids in trying to do a proper job. It's not going to be very good. Sometimes they'll do a good job, other times they'll do a shit job. And that's ultimately what it's like. We've basically tried to get the work experience kids to do a proper job. And unfortunately, that doesn't work. And we're stuck in a position now where even if we think that we've made mistakes in the transfer market, which we absolutely have, we're in a very difficult position now, because these players, all right, whilst they might not be on astronomical money compared to Chelsea wages of the past, it's going to be very difficult to move these guys on with the contracts that they are on. It works both ways. Yes, there's positives to long contracts in terms of amortization and finances. Yeah, for sure. There definitely is. But at the same time, there's also the opposite, where players get comfortable and there's a realization and an acceptance that players are probably going to outlast the manager. In fact, not probably, absolutely are going to outlast the manager. It's as simple as that. As simple as that. There are pros to it and there are cons. And right now, we're seeing a lot of cons. And look, the summer ahead is absolutely massive. You've got players that like Badia Shill, for example, last night, and just this season in general has been absolutely awful. Last season, he's one of our best players. Yes, he's been out for a long time with injury. He obviously, returns to the team, and then suddenly we find ourselves in a situation where it looks like he's never played football before, making mistake after mistake after mistake, giving the ball away, costing goals. A lot of players have regressed since last season. Yes, some players have absolutely improved, but it's a big summer ahead. And do you know what? The one thing that I can give Pochettino some credit for is actually he's now starting to call out the mess that the club is in right now. Pochettino has told Chelsea's hierarchy they must make ruthless decisions in the summer. He said the club needs to come up with a smarter strategy in order to avoid more painful nights like this one. And in fairness to him, he's absolutely spot on there. He's painted a bleak picture of the situation at Chelsea and said the club needs to be clinical when sitting down to make decisions at the end of the season. Now, you could argue that clinical would be obviously removing him from his post, but if we look outside of that, then yeah, there needs to be some massive decisions made at this football club. And if it was down to me, sporting directors would be gone. I tried to shift on some of these players. It's going to be difficult because that's actual quotes. This is not just that's not opinion. That's actual quotes from him last night. He's spoken about needing to make clinical decisions in the market. And actually, to be fair to Nazar, he's actually been pretty spot on with Chelsea a lot this season. He has. Look, I get it. Big decisions need to be made. We've gone down this route which clearly isn't working, and that needs to be corrected. Yes, Pochettino doesn't. I mean, maybe internally he takes responsibility at the training ground and whatnot, but at least outwardly, when he's speaking to the media, he doesn't seem to take any responsibility on himself. The points that he makes are valid points, but there's also got to be a realization and an acceptance that, do you know what? You need to take some responsibility as well for not doing a good enough job with the resources that you've had available. Yes, it's been difficult circumstances with all the injuries and the key players being out and the club being a bit of a mess. But what we've had available, we should have been in a better position than we are now. And there's no disputing that Pochettino has not done a good enough job this season, despite the obvious difficult circumstances. However, he's absolutely right that big decisions need to be made this summer. And I've just got a horrible feeling that we're going to go into the transfer market and do the same thing in the market that we've he did say it. You can the article is linked below. You can go and read it. It's on the internet. It's everywhere for everyone to see. He did say that, and that is the right thing to say. We need to we need to we need to make big decisions. If this summer we have to go and get some leaders, players with the right character, players with the right personality. Above all, yes, we need quality, but above all, you need the right characters, the right personality, the leadership, and the right mentality. That is the most important thing, because right now we've got too many players in the club that don't have the right mentality yet, or haven't developed the right mentality because they're at such a young stage in their careers. Experienced heads need to be added. Quality needs to be added. And I think right now there's a culture of, because there's a collective, because it's collective recruitment across the likes of your Joe Shields, your Win Stanleys, your Lawrence Stewarts, and whatnot. They all hide behind one another. I'm excusing Joe Shields out of this, but what I mean is, in terms of Lawrence Stewart and Paul Winstanley, they just hide behind each other. No one fesses up and no one takes responsibility. They were very quick to pat themselves on the back in the summer after the transfer window, patting themselves on the back about their recruitment. Where are you now, guys? Where are you now, guys? That now that the shit's hit the fan and this recruitment strategy is not proving to be the right way to go. Where are you now? Where are you now doing your interviews? Where are you now patting yourself on the back? You're not, are you? So these guys need to come out, face the music, take accountability, and say what we're going to do to rectify this, and take some accountability for what is going on and for what is ultimately an absolute mess. It did come out of his mouth. He said it in the press conference after the game, hence why the picture is of him in the presser after the Arsenal match last night. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know what decisions we're going to make in the summer, but the pressure is absolutely growing on him. There's frustration over his decisions for sure. There's no denying that. But the fundamental basics of coaching are just not here with this team. And he's had virtually a whole season to work on that, and he hasn't managed to improve that whatsoever. And that's the problem. And ultimately, the manager here is just the tip of the iceberg. He's just the tip of the iceberg. Heads need to roll all across the club. There needs to be a rethink in the direction we're going down. But as I was saying earlier, I just think there's a complete and utter naivety amongst the ownership that they think, do you know what, eventually this will just work. So we're just going to keep doing it, rather than waking up, accepting reality that, do you know what, the route we've gone down isn't working right now. The project is not working. What we came in to do 2 years later, we haven't made any progress with it at all. And it's not going in the direction we want it to go in. There's no acceptance, there's no willingness, there's no responsibility from anyone in key positions to come out, accept that they've made mistakes and what is going to be done to rectify these mistakes. The first step is calling it out that big decisions need to be made in the summer. Now we have to hope that the powers that be are actually going to listen and have got the brain capacity to realize that, we are in a position where big changes need to be made. I think ultimately for me, the biggest change that needs to be made, yes, you could argue the manager, but I think for me, the biggest change that needs to be made is the sporting directors. 100% is the sporting directors. That for me is the biggest change that needs to be made. The players aren't all shit. They're absolutely not. But there's a certain ceiling with the current structure and with the current way we're going about things as to how successful a manager can be here. If you keep going down the same route with the recruitment and keep adding more young kids to a young, inexperienced mess, if you keep doing the same thing, you're just going to keep getting the same results. And if we do that this summer, then realistically, very, very little is going to be different next season. That's the reality, people. Very little is going to be different next season if we just repeat what we've been doing over the last few windows. We know what we need to do. Everyone knows what Chelsea need to do this summer. Yet what's probably going to happen is we're going to sign a 20-year-old Benjamin Sesko because he's got a cheap release clause. We're going to sign some young, unproven left back, and we're probably going to sell players that we shouldn't sell, and we're going to bring in someone in midfield that isn't good enough to isn't good enough to play for us right now, and we're going to bring in we're going to replace Thiago Silva's know-how and experience with someone that is 19 or 20 years old. That's the reality. Absolutely shocking. Absolutely dreadful last night, the Sassy and Badiashile. Absolutely, absolutely shocking. There's no escaping from it, guys. 77 people in the building. Big yourselves up. Only 46 likes. Keep smashing that like button. Let's get this up to well over 50 likes. Subscribe if you're new around here as well. Looking to hit 9,000 subscribers as soon as possible. We're on 8,547. Let's try and get to 8,550. There should be another 3 subscribers able to get that done. In fact, we can definitely do that. So make sure you are smashing that subscribe button, guys, as well. But keep running the likes. Let's get this to well over 50. Defense was shocking last night, absolutely shocking. But do you know what? I kind of half expected it, to be perfect honest. I didn't expect us to be annihilated like that. I honestly thought we would compete slightly, but we didn't at all. Yeah, that was the same sign that was at the Brentford game as well. That was at Brentford away. I don't know if it was the same kid, but that was at Brentford away. Yeah, it does. But unfortunately, we're not going to get a change of ownership. And it seems that this ownership are very set on the path that they've gone down. And there's almost a level of naivety that they just think eventually what they're doing is going to come good. So they're just going to keep doing it. There's no acceptance, amongst them that they've made mistakes or what they're doing, might potentially be wrong. Yeah, you look at yesterday. I was surprised that both centre backs were rotated. I understand it's quite a lot of games in a short space of time. Chalobah's missed most of the season through injury anyway. He ended up coming on, so he could have easily started. I don't know why Silva came on at 5-0 down and we suddenly go to a back 5. Got no idea what the thought process was behind them. But ultimately, for me, it should have been Disasi and Chalobah, and then obviously Gilchrist. I didn't mind Gilchrist at right back. To be honest, he's probably better than Disasi at right back. If we're being brutally honest, he's more mobile and whatnot. Yes, he got done for the goal, but I actually thought that he did all right. But I don't understand why obviously both centre backs were rotated. That to me did make very, very little sense. Let's have a look. No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that at all. So I've said, if you've been listening, I've said that the job he's done has been nowhere near good enough. But getting rid of him doesn't solve all the problems. I'm not saying that he should stay, and you can't make. There's very little argument to be made for him staying based on what he's done this season. But if you think that that him going and someone else coming in under the exact same circumstances is going to have us doing remarkably better, then unfortunately you're very, very much mistaken. Yeah, I agree. It was a disrespect to send on Silva at 5-0 down. You don't do that to someone, 39, 40-year-old. You don't send him on at 5-0 down. Disgraceful. Yeah. I can do that. We can get that. Absolutely get that sorted out for sure. So yeah, big decisions lie ahead, guys. Big decisions. Honestly, I don't know what we're going to do. But look, reports have come out today. Obviously, let's start with this one, which isn't a surprise. Sam C, who actually he's part of the United stand, but he obviously has a lot of seems to have a lot of contacts and is actually pretty reliable with most of his stuff. Chelsea owners, planning to sell key players this transfer window in order to keep in line with the FFP guidelines. Club sources say the deadline's end of June. We know this. Gallagher, Broja, Chalobah. Club sources have stressed that some of the players the owners want to sell, the manager wants to keep. That doesn't surprise me whatsoever. That doesn't surprise me whatsoever that, players that the ownership are looking to sell, the manager would like to keep. And I think that, for me personally, I think that falls with Trevor Chalobah, and I think that falls with Conor Gallagher as well. Poch definitely isn't asked about Broja. And I don't think he's fussed about Ian Martson either, if we're being honest with ourselves here. But yeah, it's definitely It's definitely very, very problematic right now that there's a clear split between players that the manager wants to keep and players that the club want to sell because they've spent so much money in the transfer market, made a lot of mistakes. Now they're desperately trying to get out of jail by selling off players that act as pure profit. And I think things could well come to a head this summer. If as an ownership you start going against the manager's wishes and you start undermining the manager, then it's a long road back for that manager. Ultimately, if this ownership in the summer sells players against the manager's wishes, how can the manager stay? The manager has been clearly undermined in the transfer market. His input isn't valued whatsoever. It's very much appears to be a case of you can have your say, but we're not going to listen to any of it, and we're just going to do what we want anyway because we've made a fucking mess of everything, and we need to sell some players now to get us out of the mess that we're in. And ultimately, for me, like once a manager stops being listened to and their thoughts aren't taken on board, then that's the end. That's the end for that manager. It really is. You can't work in an environment. I don't care who you are. You can't work in an environment where the people in charge do not listen to you. That is a problem, and I can see things coming to a head this summer. I really can. I think tensions are starting to rise now. Pochettino's coming out, pulling a few punches in press conferences now about the need to go in a different direction in the summer. And, you know, the ownership aren't going to like that. I don't think they're going to be wanting to listen to that. But ultimately, like, there has to be some acceptance to listen, because when a lot of people are saying something, it probably means that, do you know what, we should listen, and maybe we should take a look, and we should reevaluate, and we should take stock of the situation and take stock of what's going on right now. Because what is going on right now is completely and utterly unacceptable at this football club, and it's just another summing up of another mess that, you know, that the ownership are probably going to sell players that a manager wants to keep. That in itself is hugely problematic. And this ownership have done some good things. They've shown ambition. They spent a lot of money. They spent a lot of money unwisely, in my opinion. But there's got to be an acceptance, guys. You need to listen. You don't know this sport. You need to listen to people that know the game, that understand players. And if you've got yourself into this mess, don't then hamstring the team by, you know, selling off players that we need, that can do a job for the club, because you fucked up in the market. You're clever businessmen. Find another way to get that revenue rather than it being at the expense of the team. This ownership, instead of looking at how profitable players can be on the pitch, all they seem to be interested in is how profitable players are off the pitch. And I'm just sick of it. Absolutely sick of it. Yes, big up for the super chat, brother. Appreciate it. Greatly appreciated. Key decision is not the next manager. Key decision is whether the director/owners will change their absolutely delusional model/recruitment strategy. And I agree on this. I absolutely agree on this. Yes, you know, you can argue the toss about the manager, sure. But ultimately, the biggest decision that needs to be made at this football club is a willingness to adapt the model/recruitment strategy. That's the biggest thing right now at this football club. And if that decision is not, if they're not willing to take that decision, it's gonna be a long road for us. It's gonna be a long road to us, for us. Sorry, if they're not prepared to do that. So I'm not too sure what we're gonna do, but I absolutely agree, Musculus, that the key decision is whether the ownership and the directors are willing to, you know, change the model and the recruitment strategy somewhat this summer. And, you know, we're told that it was a 4-window plan. This summer is the 4th window of that 4-window plan. And I'm none the wiser as to what we're trying to do in any of these transfer windows. I'm really not. Yeah, I agree. He's been linked to Liverpool as well. Obviously, it looks like Arnie Slot's going there. Look, Thomas Frank's a very good manager, but ultimately, at the end of the day, you know, it very much speaks of a likeness to a Graham Potter type appointment. Poch is echoing the same sentiment that a lot of us Chelsea fans are saying. No, he is. Yep. Yep. There's every chance as well. You know, there's going to be an appraisal at the end of the season, and I think Poch will accept that. He's not. I'm sure he'll accept that he's not done a good enough job. Yes, there's been some difficult circumstances. But he also might think, do you know what? Even if the board wanted him to stay on, that he might think, do you know what? This is not an environment to work, and this is not an environment where you can achieve success. And it's probably time to move on. He might well think that. So there's every chance that he might not want to continue next season either. But this ownership situation has got to be sorted out. It really does. I mean, you'd like to think so, mate. You would like to think so, but I'm really not sure if they do see something wrong. That's the concerning thing for me. Do they really see anything wrong at the moment? Do they say anything wrong at the moment or not? I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know what's going on at the moment. I'm not sure what direction that we're looking to head in, but surely there's got to be a realization from above that, do you know what? Fuck, we had this idea. It's not gone the way we thought it was going to go. Let's slightly adapt to this, and maybe think, actually, there's probably a reason why other teams haven't done this. It's not because you've come in and you're some sort of revolutionists and you've come up with an idea of building a young wonder kid squad that's going to be good in a few years and it's all going to be singing and dancing. You're not ahead of the curve. You've not found out something that is new and it's going to be catching on. There's a reason why no one's done this, because quite frankly, it clearly doesn't work. And if it is going to work, it's going to take rather a long time to get to where they need to get to. It's disgraceful that they're trying to sell Chalobah and Gallagher, especially. They're trying to save themselves because they absolutely are. The owners need to humble themselves and realize this is a football club they're dealing with, not some equity fund. Yep, absolutely agree on that. I've got to be honest. Look, we're in a difficult situation here because we're 2 years down the line on this so far, on this ownership, and we haven't really progressed at all since they came in 2 years ago. That in itself is a big concern. And what are we going to do about that? What are we going to do about that? There has to be an acceptance now that yes, we're ego. They've got big egos and whatnot, but it's okay to accept you're wrong. It's all right to come in and accept. You know what? We've done we've made mistakes. We've not done well enough. This is the path we're going to go down to try and rectify it. But ultimately, that doesn't really seem to be doing an awful lot. That is the problem in its that seems to be a problem in itself. I just look, whether people can talk about new managers all they want, the reality is that we're facing the difficult decisions to be made. It's entering the manager market is not easy this summer, because there are big clubs looking for a new manager. Man United will be looking for a new manager in all likelihood when Ten Hag gets the boot. Liverpool are about to appoint Arnie Slot, or are very close to appointing Arnie Slot. So that's one name that Chelsea could have gone for that's gone. You've got Bayern Munich that are looking for a new manager. You've got, obviously, Barcelona are going to be looking for a new manager. AC Milan are looking for a new manager. These are all massive football clubs that right now are actually more of an attractive proposition than Chelsea are. So the managerial market is very difficult this summer with a lot of big clubs changing. And sometimes it can be more beneficial to wait. Maybe, it might be more beneficial waiting, even if it means sticking with Pochettino for another season. And there might be a better lie of the land in the managerial market in 2025. Xavi, might take a year off, and then he might be available in 2025. There are options out there for us. There absolutely are options out there. But ultimately, the names that we're interested in are probably going to end up going to clubs that are more appealing than us. People talk about Ruben Amorim. He's obviously not going to Liverpool. He's not going to go to West Ham. I fully expect that Amorim will end up at Barcelona, in my opinion. Or he's only 39. He might think, do you know what? I'll do one more season at Sporting Lisbon, and then I'll see what's available next summer or in summer 2025. So, yes, it is. Entering the managerial market is difficult. Yes, the club will be looking at managers and doing their due diligence. Of course they are. Every club does that. But it's very difficult to see what sort of appointment we could make this summer that is really going to make any difference. And, if they do get rid of Pochettino, the next appointment has to be given time, regardless of how badly they do. If you get rid of if you get rid of Pochettino, whoever comes in next, that person has to be given the time, because if they would have to be their guy for the next 2-3 seasons, regardless, to build some stability and move forward. But ultimately, I can't trust these directors to pick the right guy, and whoever the next guy is has to be the guy for the next few years, regardless of results and regardless of what's happening, because we are in desperate need of some continuity right now. And look, if someone's not doing well enough, that's not a reason to just keep them in for the sake of it. But there is something to be said for continuing for continuity's sake. And I know that might not be a popular thing to say, but there absolutely is something to be said for continuity. There really is. And maybe you look at or maybe you look at you assess the situation the following summer, because right now we're in a situation where with the clubs that are looking at new managers, we are proving to be, we're not going to be very attractive. That's the reality. I mean, Matt Law's report saying today that there is apparently there is except there is like top coaches that would be willing to accept coming to Chelsea. I don't know who those top coaches would be, but I think for me right now, anyone that's looking to come to Chelsea is either because they're at a bit of a crossroads in their career and it's the biggest club they can get, or it's because like it would be someone coming from a lesser club and it would be a huge step up for them. That for me is how I'm looking at this Chelsea job right now. Any potential new manager coming in, it is for me someone that's a bit lost in their career, almost at a bit of a crossroads, and has been offered a lifeline with this opportunity because of work they've done in the past, or it's someone that is forging a good reputation at a smaller club, and this would represent the biggest club in their career. Thomas Tuchel is not coming back to Chelsea. He's not coming back. The sooner people forget that, the better. And look, obviously, love Thomas Tuchel for everything he's done, but the funny thing is that all the Tuchel admirers and that want him back will just overlook all the negatives that he brings as well, and the downsides to him. He falls out with players. He falls out with higher ups. His league form is not good. Yes, he's a knockout specialist and he does very well in cup competitions, but generally speaking, he's not coming back. There's a reason why he left, and nothing's changed since he's left. So he's not going to come back. And we know with the way the ownership have been acting, that they aren't going to suddenly change what they're doing to accommodate a Tuchel, to accommodate a Tuchel return. It simply isn't going to happen. It isn't going to happen. So the sooner people get that thought out of their head, the better. Again, Lopetegui. I wouldn't be surprised if Lopetegui ended up at West Ham. Lopetegui maybe to AC Milan. You know, there's a lot of there's a lot of options. No, we can't. You know, and this is what I mean, right? When you're looking to appoint a new manager, then whoever comes in needs to be a genuine upgrade on Pochettino. I'm looking out there, and I'm thinking, how many of the potential names that are realistic are genuinely a huge upgrade on Pochettino? And I don't think many of them are. You know, we're not talking about an upgrade of going from an iPhone Pro to an iPhone Pro Max. We're talking about an upgrade going from, I don't know, you're going from an iPhone 12 to an iPhone 15. We're looking for that sort of an upgrade, and there's not many of those out there. You know, right now you might get an upgrade that's like going from a Pro to a Pro Max in terms of the screen. The screen's a little bit bigger, but ultimately they fundamentally do the same job, and they're better in a couple of aspects. But the overall result and the overall product is going to be very similar. We need something that is a fundamental improvement on Mauricio Pochettino, and I look out there and I don't believe there is fundamentally any enough decent options out there that would A, come here, and B, would actually make us that much better. I mean, ultimately, as I've said, for me personally, like whoever comes in as manager, whoever manages Chelsea, if the structure and if the directors don't change and the recruitment policy doesn't change, there is a ceiling on how well you can actually do here. There is a ceiling here with this current recruitment policy and with the current strategy the club are going down. There's a ceiling as to how well you can do. Simple as that. By the way, guys, 101 of you in the building, but there's only 63 likes. What's going on here? Run those likes up, people. Run those likes up. 63, 100 in the building. Let's get this to at least 70, 80 likes. We should be well on our way to 100 likes, guys. We're having a good live stream, good chat. So please just smash that thumbs up button. It's free. It takes seconds to do. So yeah, please do that if you haven't done it. I know there's loads of you in here that haven't done it. So if you're watching the content, just hit the thumbs up button and hit that subscribe button as well, because it's greatly appreciated. I'm trying to grow the channel, trying to get towards 9,000 subscribers. So yeah, 8,548. Let's get another couple to get up to 8,550, guys. Do your thing, people. Do your thing. The community here is great, so I'm relying on you guys to smash the likes and subscribe. But yeah, no, I never said I was Pochettino in. I'm just what I'm saying is that, you know, it's not worth making a change for change's sake if there's genuinely not a considerably better option out there that would come in and would make a huge difference to Chelsea. I'm not talking about making a difference of, well, we know we might move up a space or so in the table, or we might get, you know, a few better results here and there. I'm talking about a major difference. And I just look at the managerial market this summer, and I don't see that level of candidate. I don't see that level of candidate out there. I really don't. Maybe you would think so, but ultimately, like, you know, with the way that the club's being operated and with the way that the club's being run, I don't know if things would be that much different. We need surgery on the squad. Well, we need to add. The squad needs to be added to. A lot of players need to go. And unfortunately, a lot of players have proven to not be good enough. I mean, there's a bit of an update from Ben Jacobs, and I think it's probably surmising much of what we've been talking about. Nothing definitively decided on Mauricio Pochettino's future yet. Yep, as Matt Law and others have reported, focuses on finishing the season strongly. Yep, as we know, the plan has always been an end of season review. And despite growing pressure, Poch retains support of the Chelsea dressing room. Understand Chelsea leadership are yet to make any final decision and want to do so dispassionately. Games against Villa and Spurs are going to be season defining as far as qualifying for Europe are concerned, and doing so is still seen as important. Yes, lots of factors will be considered, including whether stability is best for success. Personally, I think that's true. That's a fair factor to be considering. Along with Pochettino's own performance, injuries, young squad, the fact this summer ends a 4-window recruitment plan, data good and bad, and a potential benefit of another pre-season together will all be taken into account, as will Pochettino's own views in what is anticipated to be a two-way process. Poch himself will not be a passive figure in any conversation over his future. Chelsea are in a process of normal succession planning. This is what clubs often do, whether they make a change or not. And it's even more important when the manager is on a shorter-term deal. As a result, there aren't fears about finding or attracting a replacement if necessary, but there is also no active interview process yet. Pochettino was aware right from the start a kind of appraisal would come at the midway point of his guaranteed contract. The record 5-0 loss to Arsenal and a trophyless season has now added pressure, but Pochettino's fate remains an open case. I think there's some good points in there, and obviously some bad points in there. You look at underlying data, for example, underlying numbers. And I know data is not everything, but you look at underlying numbers, right? And our XG is very high, which means that we create a lot of chances, which generally speaks of a reasonably well-coached side. And we're not taking our chances. However, what doesn't point to a well-coached side is the fact that we've conceded a record number of goals this season. So in some ways, the underlying numbers in terms of XG are good, which shows that we do create chances, which we do, but it shows that we can't obviously stick them away. But it also doesn't take into account the fact that we ship goals for fun and we fundamentally look like we're not a well-coached side. So whilst you can argue that, creating a lot of chances and players not taking them is not necessarily a coaching problem, what is a coaching problem is what's going on at the other end of the pitch, and a complete lack of tactical identity is absolutely a major issue. There's no escaping that, people. There's no escaping that. Yes, big up. There's no regret supporting a rebuild, because a rebuild needs to happen at this football club, regardless of who the person is. We couldn't carry on how we were carrying on. So no one was against a rebuild when the rebuild was taking place, because we're all we're all pulling in the same direction. A lot of these players needed to go. A lot of these players didn't want to be here, and a squad rebuild was long overdue. I don't think any of us anticipated that the recruitment direction that we were going to be heading in. That's the big difference here. That is the big difference here. Well, yeah, at some point they probably will want to leave. There's no denying it. There's no denying it. That's the reality. Defensively we've been absolutely shambolic, and no one's done well enough. Other than Cole Palmer and Malo Gusto and Conor Gallagher to a certain degree, no one has done well enough this season. And overall, the season has been a complete and utter failure, as has much of this, as has the entirety of the football under this new ownership. That's ultimately the reality that we find ourselves in, people, is that almost 2 years down the line from when these took over, we're not in a better situation, and that in itself is really concerning. How can 2 years down the line we have not really moved any further along in the process of what we're trying to achieve at the football club? I don't understand it. Yeah, of course the pressure will be on, because ultimately, we need to qualify for Europe, and defeat at Aston Villa extinguishes that. Hands down, extinguishes that. That's the reality, guys. So, yes, there are mitigating factors for sure as to why we have struggled this season, but ultimately, regardless of the situations, with what we've had available this season, Pochettino has not done a good enough job. It's as simple as that. It really is as simple as that. There's absolutely no denying it. Absolutely no denying it. But I think, I don't know. It's gonna be a very, very interesting summer. Is what we can say. We've got the Club World Cup in 2025. You know, which we're going to be in, which is going to be massive. Ownership have got to accept have got to take responsibility and accept that they have made a lot of mistakes. That absolutely needs to occur. That has to happen. But I mean, look, he's not going to be sacked this season. There's 6 games left. The time, if you were going to make a change mid-season, has absolutely gone. You get to the summer and you have a proper, thorough assessment. You listen to what the manager's saying about what needs to improve, and then you take a decision there. That's how we're going to have to move forward. But ultimately, I'm concerned about the summer. I'm looking forward to the summer, but I'm in equal measure, I'm massively concerned about it as well, because I just have an awful feeling that we're going to go down the exact same route that we've been down in the previous transfer windows and not address the situation and not address what needs to be addressed, and just continue adding young inexperienced players on top of more young inexperienced players, and then potentially on top of that you're going to chuck an inexperienced manager into the mix as well, to really top it off. So yeah, excited, but also concerned about the direction that we are going to be heading in this summer, because it is concerning. It absolutely is concerning, and there's no denying that we are bang in trouble. There's absolutely there's absolutely no denying it at all. It's kind of exciting but worrying times ahead. You could think that we could really show some intent in the summer window by adding some top quality players, adding some leadership, or we could just set ourselves up to be mediocre for the next few years by just adding young, inexperienced players that clearly aren't ready to make an impact. So I don't know what route we're going to go down, but I suspect on the evidence we've got so far, it's far more likely to be the latter than it is the former, and that in itself is a major problem, people. It's a major problem. But look, I mean, yeah. I mean, I was kind of trying to erase yesterday from memory, but yeah, getting beaten at the near post was poor. I absolutely agree on that front. I mean, look, it's a collective responsibility for everyone. Bowley's not involved anywhere near as much as he was in the day-to-day running of the club. And ultimately, a lot of the big decisions lie with Egg Barley, and they lie with Feliciano as well. So, yeah, they're certainly not covering themselves in a lot of glory. They're really not. They're really not covering themselves in a lot of glory, if any glory whatsoever. And yeah, it's tough times ahead. It's a tough 6 games to finish. We've got Villa away Saturday, then Spurs, then we've got West Ham, then we've got Nottingham Forest, then we've got Brighton, and then we finish at home to Bournemouth. That is the last 6. Villa, Spurs, West Ham, Forest, Brighton, Bournemouth. 6 tough games. And I don't see how we get an awful lot of points out of it. I really don't. I think we could be in a reasonable amount of trouble here. I really do think we could be in a reasonable amount of trouble here, and we will need to sort out we got to desperately sort out what's going on right now, because what's going on right now is completely and utterly unacceptable on every single level. Fundamentally, it is an absolute shambles right now, and I just worry that I know, I'm just worried that there's a. I'm just worried about what we're looking at. I really am. Yeah, it's uh, it's gonna be it's gonna be tough. It really is. It's gonna be difficult, people. I don't know what the rest of the season holds. I'd like to think it can't get much worse than last night, but the reality is it it could easily get worse than last night. We could easily get absolutely ruined by Aston Villa on Saturday. We could easily get ruined by Villa on Saturday. There's no denying that at all. We could absolutely get hammered by Villa. Um, so I like to think that we just got to finish the season in the best way as we can. Send Enzo for the surgery. Don't jeopardize his future. Get him right for the pre-season. Sort out the managerial situation one way or another. Make sure we check, we get rid of players that aren't good enough. Bring in players that we actually need: leadership, mentality, experience. All these things. Um, does Poch have a hard job? Yes, very difficult, but he's not doing a good job regardless. Sterling's been shocking for the wages that he's on. He's just as bad as the young and experienced players. Um, you know, Poch hasn't been good enough. It's as simple as that. He hasn't been good enough. Havertz dunking on us. I completely forgot about that. He scored twice last night. Chukwuemeka somehow not being able to get any minutes whatsoever, conceding 3 goals in 13 second half minutes. The second half curse striking again. Yeah, just utter carnage. Anything can happen, and anything can happen in the Premier League. And part of me feels like we can't rule out us heading up to Villa on Saturday and getting a result. Equally, we could get turned over and then get turned over by Spurs. I think if you throw it ahead, if we were to lose at Spurs to Stamford Bridge, that would be a huge problem, and that would be something that I don't think you'd be able to recover from. That for me is the reality of that situation. Let's have a look. It's just really sad how we've ended up, to be honest. Yeah, look, we're not going to be stuck like this permanently. Like, we will rise again. I don't know when, but yeah, it's very, very difficult times. There's a lot wrong at the football club right now. There's a lot that needs fixing, and ultimately, I just don't have the trust in the people in charge to do the right thing to get this club back on track, and to where it has been in the past, and to where it deserves to be. And that's proving to be very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. It's tough. We're not going to have. There's not going to be very many decent options out there in the summer. There really isn't. When you look at the clubs that are looking for new managers, yeah, it was a horrible feeling. Almost one that you sort of knew was going to happen, but when it does happen, it hits you badly like a ton of bricks. It really does. Carney is fit to play. I don't understand why he can't get any minutes. I really don't. But yeah, it is is what it is. I'll be honest. I don't see us getting Osimhen. I think Victor Osimhen, personally, for me, is more likely to end up at PSG. I could be wrong, but I don't think Osimhen would be prepared to take a gamble on Chelsea when he will want Champions League football, and there's no guarantees that next season we'll qualify for the Champions League either. So, yeah, and I also this is also a point that I absolutely agree with. You know, I'm not saying that we should be sticking with managers for the sake of it, but at some point, Chelsea with a manager have got to play the long game and stick with someone through a difficult period, because otherwise, if we keep sacking managers and just keep starting again, as you say, we're just going to go round in circles and we're not going to go anywhere. So that I absolutely agree with that. We can't keep doing that. We can't keep starting again, because by doing that, you're not making any progress whatsoever. There needs to be a point where we play the long game with a manager. I'm not saying it should be Pochettino, by the way, but if it happens to be, then maybe we have to accept that. And you have to back a manager for a difficult period at some point. Otherwise, we're not going to progress anywhere as a football club. It's as simple as that. Let's see if any other news has come in. I'm going to round this one out in a sec because I've got a few bits and pieces that I've got to do tonight. But yeah, let's see if there's anything else coming in. I don't think there is too much else. But yeah, guys, I'm probably going to round this one out here. Big up to everyone that has locked in. Big up to everyone for all your comments in the chat. Big up for the super chats and donations are greatly appreciated. Big up to everyone that smashed the likes and all and all that. On your way out, guys, please run the likes up. We're 3 likes away from 80 likes. Get this as close to 100 likes as you can. So please do smash the likes on the way out. Please do subscribe to the channel if you are new round here as well. That would be greatly appreciated. Also, yeah, guys, run it up, smash the like, subscribe. Difficult evening last night, difficult times for the football club ahead. I'll be back tomorrow. There'll be Aston Villa opposition preview dropping with Luke from the Up the Villa podcast. Great chat that we had. You know, 4th time we've linked up this season. Make sure you show the video some love when it drops tomorrow and check it out. And if there's any major news, I'll be back with another live stream. If not, guys, I'll catch you live on Friday for the Aston Villa match preview and whatever other news there is. So opposition preview dropping tomorrow, live on Friday for the match preview, unless there's any other major news between now and then. So smash the like, subscribe. It's a shame that we're not in better circumstances, but it is what it is. One day the sun will shine on us again, people. We will be back to where we belong. I don't know where it is. Big decisions lie ahead. It's a long road, a difficult road, but I do feel we can get back there. But some fundamental, massive decisions need to be made in the summer to correct the course that this football club is heading down. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your evening. Up the Chelsea. Peace out and catch you guys again soon.